All right, let's jump right into live Boolean. So what I'm going to do is go over here to my simple brush, and I can grab any of these primitives because I'm going to end up changing it anyway. So I'm going to grab this gear 3D, drag it out, go into edit mode, make it a polymesh 3D so it's sculptable, and I'm going to change the matte cap gray, which will be over here in your matte caps. And now I can go down here to initialize and hit Q cube, and what that's going to do is give me just a regular old cube subdivided up twice. Now, if you're familiar with the Boolean system that you use with Dynamesh, it's very similar to that. So you're going to have three options here. You're going to have additive, subtractive, and intersection. So we'll just take a quick spin through these and talk about what the differences are between them. So I'm going to have this cube here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this cube. So now I've got two cubes. And in order for this to work, you are going to need multiple subtools. So something you're probably already pretty familiar with. I'm going to take this cube we have here. I'm going to hit W and use our new gizmo to kind of go through here and just kind of move this thing off to the side. We'll pull out a corner right here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off polyframe. And let's see how these Booleans interact with each other. It's called live Boolean because it interactively updates on the fly. So what we're going to do is we can hit this live Boolean up here, or if you go into the render menu and go to render Booleans, you can see the live Boolean is right there. You can also assign a hotkey. I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can hold down Control Alt and tap it. I'm going to assign it to Alt R, which it already is. So now all I hit is Alt R to toggle that on and off. Now you're going to see when I turn that on, it's not really doing much, and that's because this second subtool here, and we're going top down, so that's important to understand. The second Boolean isn't doing anything, and by Boolean I just mean this object right here is not interacting with this mesh at all. However, if I go down here and I do subtractive, now that cube is cutting in. Now of course it's live Boolean, so I can hit W on with this cutout cube selected, and I can go through here and I can just move this thing around as I need, or I can scale it down. If I go into solo mode, that'll actually solo out what this object is and where it's at in space. However, you can also just hit your hotkey for live Boolean or click the button off, and now you can see the cube just fine. So if I hit the live Boolean again, instead of subtractive, let's switch that over onto intersection. So now it's doing an intersection of these meshes. If I turn that off, you're going to see where these two meshes meet, it's leaving behind an intersection mesh. So already you pretty much get the gist of how these live Booleans work. Now, obviously these videos are going to keep going longer and longer because the implications of this and how powerful this can be for you pretty much spans everything within ZBrush. So what I see a lot of is, well, does this feature work with live Booleans? Does this feature work with live Booleans? Probably yes. All it is just a preview render of what these Booleans are going to do, and we'll get into how to make this a usable mesh later on. But in the meantime, if we, for example, we've got this on intersection, I'm going to set this to subtractive, and let's go ahead and shrink this cube down, and we'll go ahead and push it in here. Now, let's remember when we were doing our gizmo test, when we turn on sticky, we could do a mesh this way. Let's go ahead and do that again. So I'm going to hit W, turn on sticky. I'm going to hold down Control and move this in, and I can hit 1 to keep replaying last, which of course is under our stroke menu modifiers, replay last. So now with all of these cube sitting there, if I turn on live Boolean, because this whole subtool is set to subtractive, it's going ahead and subtracting out all of these cubes here. And I can move them this way. Oh, of course, I have these masked here, so if I turn off live Boolean, you're going to see when I'm moving this thing around, it's just moving this last one through there. So what I'm going to do is Control drag to unmask. Now, it's still cut through. The live Boolean still worked while they were masked. I just couldn't move them around. And now I can move them all around here, so I can kind of position these exactly where I want to. And that's about it. Pretty simple system. Now let's have a little bit more fun with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cube right here, and I'm going to go down here to Geometry, Dynamic Subdiv. Now if I hit D to turn Dynamic Subdiv on, ZBrush Alright will give you a notice and make sure that, every time you hit D, you want it to do Dynamic Subdiv. So it'll give you a little bit of a message that'll pop up. But what I'm going to do is, instead of just doing the smooth subdivision, which of course you can smooth on the fly, and again, this is all real time. So if I go back down here and select this one, I can just move these things around, or I can hold down Control and duplicate these over and put them over here on this side. And of course, you're probably going to want to unmask, so you can remember you can move these things. We'll go ahead and turn live Boolean back on, and immediately those things update. If I go back here, again, maybe I don't want to do the dynamic smooth subdiv, I want to do the Q grid. So if I do Q grid, that'll go ahead and let's go ahead and turn live Boolean off. We could talk about this for a minute. So I'm going to go into solo mode here, and you're going to see with Q grid off, it just averages the vertices and gives me a preview of what it would look like if I just hit Control D 4 times. Now with Q grid, what it's going to do is weight my divisions along the hard edges of my object. So if I go down here to Q grid and then change the coverage, I can kind of get a nice beveled cube right there. So you can see if we turn on polyframe, it looks like that. If I go out of solo mode, now I have these objects also interacting with that. So if I turn on live Boolean, I've got a nice beveled box on here, and now these things are kind of cutting in super sharp. Well, of course, now you can select this one. Let's do the exact same thing. I'm going to turn on dynamic. This is just smooth subdiv. I'm going to turn on QGrid, and I'm also going to do this coverage here so you can see on the fly I can just update these objects to kind of get those cut-ins that I want. Now, as we're manipulating this thing again, I can go over here with the subtractive mesh selected. I can hit solo and I can see them a little bit better. One thing that's a little bit useful too, if you want to kind of see where these things are in space while you're manipulating them, go ahead and turn on polyframe, and that'll show you a hatched version of your object. So now you can kind of see where these things are in space. And again, you can go ahead and duplicate or insert or whatever you'd like to do.